Arthrix presents a minimally invasive bunion correction to correct mild to moderate bunion deformities. First, palpate or outline the dorsal and plantar aspects of the first metatarsal and hallux. It can also be helpful to mark out the bisection of the shaft on the metatarsal neck. Using fluoroscopy as a guide, a 5 mm incision is made with the beaver blade at the midline of the metatarsal and just proximal to the sesamoid complex. Blunt dissection is carried down to bone, and a curved periosteal elevator is used to dissect subperiosteally in the intended path of the burr. It is important to make sure the extensor tendon and soft tissue structures remain dorsal to the periosteal elevator. The 2 mm by 19 mm burr is introduced proximally to the sesamoid complex, midline at the metatarsal, and advanced to puncture both the medial and lateral cortex of the metatarsal. It is important to note the initial trajectory of the MIS burr to ensure the surgeon accounts for maintaining, lengthening, or shortening the metatarsal based on the angle of the burr. At this point, the dorsal and plantar aspects of the transverse cut are completed with the burr by rotating the handle first plantar, then dorsal to complete the osteotomy. Upon completion of the osteotomy, the hallux is rotated under fluoroscopy via supination and pronation to confirm the osteotomy is complete. Next, a 2 mm double-tipped guide wire is placed antegrade through the incision towards the distal aspect of the toe in an extraperiosteal fashion. The pin should exit the skin midline and medial to the distal phalanx. A curved hemostat is placed through the incision and into the proximal metatarsal shaft to assist in lateral translation of the capital fragment. When the surgeon is satisfied with the translation and rotation of the sesamoid complex, while holding simultaneous abduction of the hallux, the guide wire is advanced midline through the medullary canal until it is abutting the proximal aspect of the metatarsal near the TMT joint. This will help maintain the lateral and rotational translation of the capital fragment. At this stage, the hemostat can be removed if desired. The capital fragment can be supinated manually via the hallux to correct the sesamoid position further. Finally, in preparation for final fixation, 2 parallel 1.1 guide wires are placed midline from the base of the metatarsal shaft. It is critical to ensure the most proximal wire is inserted in a bicortical fashion prior to entering the capital fragment. This enhances the overall construct stability. The second guide wire is placed in a similar trajectory, 1 cm distal to the initial wire. This wire is critical to provide anti-rotational strength to the overall construct during early weight bearing. Skin incisions are made, and the cannulated depth gauge is inserted over both guide wires to determine the necessary screw lengths. A general rule of thumb is to remove 4 mm from the measured length of the screw. Next, the cannulated drill is inserted over the proximal guide wire, ensuring that the drill is advanced along the entire length of the wire and into the capital fragment. Leaving the wire in place, the appropriate length 4.0 compression FT screw is inserted over the wire. Finally, the process of drilling and implanting the second screw is repeated to complete fixation of the metatarsal osteotomy. To ensure appropriate alignment of the hallux, an Aiken osteotomy is also recommended for this procedure. Initially, a 5 mm incision is made midline on the hallux in line with the intended starting point of the osteotomy. After blunt dissection is carried down to the bone, the periosteal elevator is utilized to create a dorsal and plantar working space for the burr. The 2 mm by 13 mm burr is introduced midline, aiming for distal medial to proximal lateral in order to create a medial wedge osteotomy. Rotate the burr handle plantar and then dorsal to create a transverse cut in the bone while maintaining the lateral cortex to act as a hinge. Gentle manipulation is applied to reduce and compress the osteotomy. Next, place a 0.86 mm guide wire across the osteotomy from distal lateral to proximal medial. An incision is made with the beaver blade and the wire is measured. Drill over the wire with the cannulated drill and finally insert the 2.5 compression FT screw to complete the construct. Finally, if necessary, the redundant bone shelf can be removed utilizing a 2.9 mm wedge burr. The incisions are closed, a compressive bandage can be applied, and the construct is complete.